Good morning. A couple of days ago, I had the honor of sitting down and chatting to Rand Fishkin. Rand is the founder of Moz and he now runs SparkToro. He is a marketing genius. And in this interview, you are going to learn all about what SEO looks like for you in 2024, how to create your own marketing blueprint for your own businesses, how to create great content, and also how to go viral on Twitter and LinkedIn. Oh, and you're also going to find out what Rand did directly after he resigned from his last ever Moz board meeting. Let's get into it. I want to start off by, I saw one of your recent whiteboards, which was great, where you took a look at the history of where we've been, and you talked about, so you went way back to like the old days of SEO, and then brought us back forward to where we are now, and your own journey through that as well, how you kind of changed your mind in some of this stuff. And I think that was a really encapsulated brilliantly for me, kind of where we're at. So I think it'd be great just to ask you to run through some of that stuff again, if you could. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the core of my assertion is that the fundamental building blocks of how information is transmitted, how it gets shared, how it gets discovered, and I'm talking about information of all kinds, right? So whether that's an article you really liked about something you care about, or a business you're going to check out, or a product you're going to buy, or a service, that essentially from 2000 to about 2012, 13, 14 even, almost everyone on the internet did one thing, and that was go to Google and type in keywords. And that was the discovery mechanism for nearly everything digital. And so digital marketing dollars and efforts and people went that direction as well, right? SEO and PPC became massive, multi-billion-dollar industries with millions of practitioners, which was great for my last company, Moz, which sort of like rode that wave. And obviously, my career benefited a lot from it. I think a lot of people's did.
Yeah.
But around that 2012, 13, 14 timeframe, things started to shift in a few different directions. And I think that's because of the changing behavior patterns of really two groups. And that's kind of executives and entrepreneurs of major web platforms, and also users of the internet. Many of us, it's not that we stopped trusting Google, but we started relying on Google for the end of a journey rather than the start of it. Okay. We had all developed our habits around, okay, I know when I want product X, I go to Amazon. I know when I want product Y, I go to Italy.com, or I go to Design Within Reach for my furniture, or I go to anthropology.com because I can buy all their stuff on there. And almost every brand that we were all familiar with and that we had used in the offline world now had a reasonably competent, useful website where we could do all of our online activities, unlike that, the first couple decades of the internet where that was less reliable. And then YouTube, LinkedIn, Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, and later places like TikTok and Threads and Mastodon and all these others, right, became massive destinations of their own. And they became places where people discovered content and ideas and people and services and products. And the weird part is, Jamie, that our digital marketing behavior didn't shift commensurately. I think it takes a long time for marketers to sort of move from, the world is like this. Well, for SEO, right, and PPC, it took 15 years for that to mature, right, and that industry to sort of get up to speed and businesses to really adopt it, even after it was super popular, right? 2003, everybody's using Google, but it didn't matter, right? It took like another 12, 15 years for marketers to like get on board with that, or rather businesses to get their marketers on board with it. I think the same thing's happening here, right? The dispersion of all this online activity is creating a world where marketers and businesses are going to have to catch up to how people are discovering ideas and learning about things, right? Webinars, video, social accounts, small blogs, Substacks, like all this dispersion of attention. Even Twitter, right? Twitter's breakup and destruction by
Yeah.
Elon means that, like I was reading today, it's impossible to go viral on Twitter anymore. Like there haven't really been viral articles like there used to be. It's no longer a part of the platform. And so
And why is that? Why is that? Why, if you took the Twitter example, why is that on Twitter?
I mean, three things, right? One is the behavior of Twitter users who have been trained over the last few years not to amplify links as much, and even not to amplify in general, especially since the Elon takeover. Elon himself, right, when he took over the company, I don't know exactly what you want to call this group of people, but a lot of the journalists, creators, media types, entrepreneurs, basically people who didn't love Elon himself, right, and all the sort of anti-trans and other political things that he stands for, and were, I would say, feeling like the platform was no longer for them based on his signaling. They sort of left and took a lot of their amplification with them, right? So many of the I would put myself in this group, right? I no longer retweet much of anything. I spend as little time on the platform as I possibly can, maybe 15 minutes a week or less, compared to probably 5 hours a week, last year. So that changed. And then Twitter's algorithm, which Elon weirdly, kindly sort of open sourced, right? Which says, if you put a link in your tweet will not do as well. Our algorithm is designed to punish you for linking in your tweet, keep people on Twitter, don't send them out of Twitter. So, people got the message, and obviously the algorithm's biased against it. And who knows how much he's updated it since then. But then I think the third component is that creators on Twitter who've become much more sort of generally right-wing, and generally the discussion on Twitter has moved away from lots of niche topics to a few sort of generally what I'd call like social issue stuff, right? That's become the dominant theme of Twitter or whatever it's called, X now, right? Last few years, or the last year, and that group doesn't link out the way they used to. So all those things.
Okay, we're seeing the same sort of behavior in other platforms, though, right? So the algorithms are rewarding content that's directly embedded in it rather than linking out. They're all closing us in.
It's a zero-click world, and we are just zero-clicking in it.
Yeah, which is not great. But in terms of content people, which I want to move on to actually at some point. I mean, that means just directly uploading your content or creating content specifically for platforms and not linking out to your own sites. Is that the advice?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of, I would not say that's my advice. No, I think that my advice is sometimes you use the platforms the way the platforms want you to use them. And sometimes you take advantage of the algorithmic capital and followers that you've built up by playing their game to play your game.
Yeah.
Right. So the way I think about it is kind of 3 to 5 native content posts and 1 post that links to my stuff.
Okay.
Right. So it's like a balance.
So I've been prepping for this interview. We've had a few false starts. So I've been prepping for this interview for about 3 weeks, which has been great. And we had this long drive. We dropped our eldest daughter off at university a few weeks ago. We had a 5-hour drive. So ran Fishkin through the stereo for 5 hours, me and my wife. Yeah. So you've been with us for a while. She's a yoga teacher. She hadn't heard of you, Rand. I'm sorry. She knows all about you now, and she thinks you're great. But so as I've been involved in the thoughts of this interview and listening to a lot of your thoughts, it feels to me like with AI and kind of where we're all going, it feels like from a brand point of view, like almost the biggest asset any company can build these days is trust and how you build trust. So I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on, because it feels like we're at a point in our lives where our trust in institutions has never been lower. Our trust in media has never been lower. Our trust in government has probably never been lower. Can you let me know what you think about that?
Look, I think for myself and for people that I want to work with and companies that I want to buy from, I agree with you. I think building trust is the most important thing. I wish that more brands, companies, politicians, influencers, creators, journalists, everybody was interested and obsessed with that. But I have to say that if you look at the behavior of actual consumers, actual businesses, it's not like the politicians we don't trust aren't getting elected. They are. It's not like the businesses that we don't trust aren't getting rewarded and making their shareholders even wealthier. They are. Bad behavior is getting rewarded in the system we live in, and that's why it continues. And so I think it's disingenuous for me to say you can't be successful if you treat your customers terribly. I mean, Unity is treating their customers awfully, just disgustingly, grossly, right, this week.
Yeah. I don't know
and
that
they're
story.
probably going to make Unity, the video game engine, right?
Okay.
They've been in the news a bunch for essentially changing their pricing after promising that they would not change their pricing in particularly this way. And now, they're going to put I don't know, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of independent game developers out of business and prevent the creation of all sorts of games and charge people for games that they already publish. And just, all sorts of gross, disgusting things. And probably, even though I wish this were not the case, probably the CEO and the executive team will make more money next year than they did this year. I don't know if the company will do better, but the C-suite will probably get a bonus, a raise, more stock options. So, a system that rewards bad behavior is one that is encouraging bad behavior. And that's a little bit the world that we live in.
Are there any glimmers of hope that you see out there? Do you see, are there good examples of ways brands building trust in a good way that we can look to and go, okay, well, that's a model we could probably look to use?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the big separator there is essentially if you remove public companies, publicly traded companies from the list, what you see in the private world, private sort of privately held companies is a lot of wonderful small brands that build trust and benefit from that. And I think that is also true in the world of content creators. It's true in the world of social media influencers. It's true in the world of people who write books and have podcasts and share their business thoughts on LinkedIn, right? Those folks, trust is real. It does cost you. I think it's a real question of size, right? Google's a great example of this. Google, the company, up until they went public, and even for a few years afterward, had this motto of don't be evil, right? And don't do evil. And I would argue they did some things that were not great, but by and large, for a big company, they were incredibly impressive, right? And that's why a ton of people in our generation wanted to work there. The best, smartest people that I ever knew, they all wanted jobs at Google. Many of them got them and went there, and then the company went through what every big company seems to go through, which is, we don't really have core values. We just care about making more money, because if we don't, we will be replaced by our board of directors and our shareholders by people who do care about that. Yeah.
Right. I want to ask a few questions about we'll go back quickly to where we're at in terms of kind of the search market, and in particular SparkToro, which is a really interesting, which is your new business. I'm going to say new business. It's not that new, but which is your business. Yeah. Can you just give us a quick précis on what it does and where its value is?
Sure. Yeah. So SparkToro is an audience research tool, and it's very simple and straightforward. It's essentially a giant collection of hundreds of millions of publicly crawled data points from people's profiles on the web and social media accounts. And it lets you sort of search across that and get aggregated, anonymized information. So that's what it is. But who it helps and what it does, is essentially if you are a marketer or a persona builder or a content creator, and you really want to understand what interior designers in Los Angeles care about, what they follow, what skills and interests they have, demographic breakdown, you can go to SparkToro and get that information in a few seconds. Whereas, before SparkToro existed, if you wanted that, I guess you would have run a large scale survey, and you probably would have paid a survey company, hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe only tens of thousands of dollars, if you found a good bargain one. But SparkToro is like, hey, $50 a month or free, right? You can use the free version and get a bunch of data for free, and anyone can just perform that search and see behaviors and demographics of any describable online group. And that's essentially the value proposition. So we're not AI, we're not machine learning. We're very simple and straightforward. And that's the way we like to operate, but very useful for, thousands and thousands of marketers, which is great.
And did you launch it as a sort of antithesis of SEO? Is that fair to say?
I don't know if antithesis would be right. Maybe more of an add-on, right? Like,
okay,
you can get all of this great research data from, a tool like Moz, my previous company, or SEMrush or Ahrefs, right? Or these other popular SEO tools. You can get lots of data about here's what keywords that are searched for, here's websites that link to other websites, here's pay-per-click costs, right? All of that type of data. But this kind of data, the kind of data of who's on the internet, what are they doing, what do they follow, read, listen to, watch, what are their demographics, that felt like a huge missing chunk.
Yeah.
And so it's not about saying, oh, well, this data is in opposition to SEO or paid search data. I think if you're doing one, you probably, maybe not the same people, but you probably as a business want to be doing the other one too.
Sure. But does your view that sort of SEO is going to become, with generative AI and all the stuff that's coming our way, do you think that's going to be more difficult for people to drive traffic and drive customers to their sites? Probably, right?
I can't think of a year after, say, 2009, where search wasn't more difficult, more challenging to get traffic from. And that's because, there's more competition every year. More and more people invest in SEO, more businesses try and compete. There's only a few spots at the top of any search keyword, whether someone clicks on your site or not, right? I think the zero-click search thing, that'll be a new challenge for a lot of people who do SEO and paid search, but they will all still be trying to influence searchers through what appears in Google. And I don't think that's going anywhere until Google itself gets replaced or dies, which feels very unlikely to me.
Yeah. Right. Time for some free consultancy. I'm going to give you a challenge. So my wife is a yoga teacher, and she's had a yoga studio for, this is the setup, right? She's had a yoga studio for about 6 years. And she's just started a course which she runs face-to-face, which is teaching other yoga teachers how to create a business out of being a yoga teacher. Because when you're a yoga teacher, you get all the training up front, and then you're kind of off you go into the world, and you're not given any of the other stuff like, how do you get customers? How do you manage your database? How do you do marketing? The legal stuff. She's got a course running it face-to-face. She wants to take it online. So she's going to create an online course for this. What's the Rand Fishkin strategy for Rosy Glove?
Interestingly, I would start with product. I would start with product and positioning. So I think one of the challenges is that teaching yoga is not a high barrier to entry type of business, right? Many, many people can do it, and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people do it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of demand, but there's a tremendous amount of supply. And
there's
so standing out.
There's not, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. There's not a lot of supply in terms of teaching the business of yoga. That's almost like, it's almost one of the challenges. You almost have to educate the market because it just doesn't exist. People don't do it. Right. Sorry, carry on.
No, this is quite similar to SparkToro in that marketers, for example, don't know that they need or should be doing, or no one's told them to do audience research, right? It's not like on the list of, hey, you got to build me a website, and then I want you to SEO the website, and then I want you to buy some paid search ads, and I want you to set up email marketing, set up a CRM, do some content marketing. And then there's nothing about like, hey, let's research who our audience is and what they pay attention to, and then be present in those places. That process is it's essentially my job to like educate the world of marketing that that's a thing that should be done. And my suspicion is, what's your wife's name?
Rosie.
So Rosie's job is she has to educate yoga teachers about, hey, in order to build a successful yoga business, you don't just have to be good at teaching yoga.
Yeah.
You have to be good at these other things. And that is an education process, because my suspicion is there are not, hundreds of thousands of yoga teachers all around the planet who are going to Google and searching for how to build a better business on yoga, or business marketing for yoga teachers, or business management courses for yoga instructors. I'm not saying there's none, but my guess is those searches are, under 100 a month.
Yeah.
And so, and even in that space, right, there's competition, right? There's some online courses that already exist. And obviously, people who are interested in getting to the top of that. So I think if I were advising her, I would talk with her about how to make that the product itself, the kind of thing people would talk about.
Okay.
Just generally, like they would have conversations organically about that, because the business uniqueness really stands out. One thing is, it's helpful, right?
Yeah.
But if you can make it a viral type of conversation, because I'm only going to come up with dumb, bad ideas in the 90 seconds that I have here, right, to talk about this. But if it was, Rosie helped a very famous yoga instructor become very famous and successful, right? And so now lots of people do that. Or many people who are famous and well-known and have millions of followers on social platforms come to Rosie's studio already. So of course she's the person that I want to learn from, and the amplification happens that way, right, through it. It could be that she makes a partnership with, I don't know, Lululemon, right? And Lululemon starts promoting her as, hey, you're buying our clothing and whatever, and if you need this, Rosie's the person to talk to about it, right? So there's kind of these things that you want to add into the product itself and the marketing. I would also, in her shoes, I would think very much about what are the primary platforms where yoga instructors who are exactly in her demographic, right? And psychographic, like they're not just yoga instructors, but yoga instructors who care about building their business, because there's a lot of yoga instructors who they kind of do it on the side. It's mostly for fun. They don't mind losing money on it. I have a friend who does this exactly, right? And it's not her primary business. She does it on the side. It's mostly a relationship building thing. She doesn't care if she loses $10,000 a year on the business, 50,000, right? Like she makes good money with her other business. This is just a side thing. And that is true for a lot of yoga instructors. So Rosie has to find who are the people who really want this, or trying to grow their business, or making it their primary business. What aspects do they have that are consistent? Like, do they always have a Google Maps listing that's claimed that has more than 50 reviews? Okay, that's my audience. Oh, they tend to be in these parts of the United States and Canada and the UK. Oh, they tend to have more than 100, customers already. So like these are the things. And then I would literally make that the pitch. I would say, if you have more than 100 customers already, and you are trying to grow your yoga business because it's your primary business, and you care about turning it into something that makes you 6 figures a year, I am the right person for you. This is the right course for you. Everybody else, no.
Yeah.
Right. And by turning people away and bringing the right people in, this is sort of classic positioning. I am X for Y and not X for Z. you have a lot of success. So that would be like my starting point. And then we could talk about channels and tactics too, but
yeah,
that's where I begin.
That's some gold dust right there. Thank you. And in terms of, I want to move on to content because I want to ask you about your content because that's really interesting. Would you advise her to start creating content like, or do you think she just goes product? Because I've been banging on about she needs to create some content and start to,
So this is
gone.
This is why audience research is so critical, right? Like I would do three things. I would run a survey to that group of people, right? Hopefully she already has like a few hundred people she could survey, but
yeah,
maybe she'll have to do some outreach. She could even pay like a survey company, can't remember what SurveyMonkey's called now, but they have their SurveyMonkey audience group where you can specifically target yoga teachers and get people to film it. So I would run a survey. I would do 2 or 3 dozen interviews, just like you and I are having conversation over Zoom. I would do 30 minutes of those. I would ask them, right? I'd say, yeah, Rosie, I want you to ask these people who are in your audience, but not yet your customers. I want you to ask them, like, where do they go to consume information about the world of yoga? What do they read? What do they watch? What do they listen to? Then I would use something like SparkToro, or if she has a huge budget, I would use something like BrandWatch. BrandWatch has a really great audience research tool, but it's 6 figures plus. So quite a different set than SparkToro. And I would basically plug in all the sources of influence, the people that this audience say they follow, the topics they say they care about. And I would go try and figure out, are they a group of people who consume content on the web about this stuff? Or no, not really.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And it could be the case that no, they don't. Like they get information about the world of yoga mostly through their customers and friends.
Yeah,
that's where they hear about it. Maybe it's on Instagram from like influencers. Maybe it's on TikTok. Maybe there's a few YouTube channels, but they don't go to a yoga business's blog and read and subscribe to content there.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of pointless to do that, right?
Yeah.
Like if you don't find that 15, 20 of the 30 people that you interview say, oh yeah, I subscribe to a few email newsletters and blogs and websites and whatever, I would not be a content creator. Maybe I'd be a social content creator, or I'd work with other social brands, or I'd find partnerships, or I'd go to events. I'd try to get on podcasts. I'd write a book, whatever, like different kind of marketing.
Yeah. The key bit is the research bit, isn't it? To find out.
Yeah. Because if you don't,
people.
Yeah, if you don't understand where your audience has their customer journey, then you will make terrible decisions based on, what's top of mind for you. Like when I was in SEO, Jamie, I tried to apply SEO to every business. If you had asked me this question when I worked at Moz, what would I have said? I would have been like, oh yeah, let me show you the keywords that she should be ranking for. Okay, here's a list of keywords, and like, let's take those, let's create content that's going to rank well, let's link build to those. Then, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
It's complex though, isn't it? I mean, the process you've just described for Rosie is a complex process. That's not an easy thing. I mean, it's the right answer, but it's not an easy thing for people when they're starting out to get their heads around, I guess. And there's tools that can help.
I think that's right. I think that it can be a struggle, but I would say it's oftentimes simpler than you'd think. As an example, let's say that Rosie was like, gosh, I don't have the money to do a survey with SurveyMonkey. Like, that's just not going to work for me. But you know what? I do have 220 people on my mailing list. I think if I send a blast email, I'm going to get a 10% response. That's not big enough. So you know what I'm going to do? Even though it's a little bit of crushingly boring work, I'm going to send 220 individual emails where I just copy paste from Gmail and send them one by one to everybody, because I know that my response rate will be like 60, 70% if I do that. I personalize every one. And it's a slog of like 3 days of just sending email after email after email. But you get great responses. Yeah. And then you can take those, maybe you get 150 people out of the 220 who reply to that. And you do interviews with 15 of them. Yeah. Yes, it was time consuming, but is it complex or hard? Like it's sort of painful. Oh my God, I kind of don't want to do it work but it
Yeah.
is not difficult work, right? You don't need to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to get a doctorate. Like,
it's the
you don't
stuff
need a lot of money.
it's the stuff you would do if you didn't, if computers vanished tomorrow, wouldn't you? It's kind of old school stuff. You have to go and talk to people.
Yep.
We'll do that.
It turns out, even with computers, talking to people, a really good idea.
There's a shocker. Can I ask you a few questions about the whiteboard behind you and content production? Because I think I've just actually started using whiteboard in some of my videos, and people love it. I mean, I have a little one, but people absolutely love it, so it's staying.
I mean, I saw Joe Biden doing like his economics breakdown on his whiteboard, the president of the United States. And I thought to myself, look at that, Joe Biden doing a 5-minute whiteboard. I am a trendsetter.
I think whiteboards are going to be huge over the next year, especially with AI, because everyone's going to want authenticity, and there's nothing more authentic than a whiteboard. So my question was, how important do you think your whiteboard Fridays were to Moz back in the day?
That's a good question. My suspicion is they felt like a bigger deal than they actually were. I think that, generally speaking, for a software business, the thing that matters most is the software, right? Yeah. And that was what people came to us for. But we certainly got a lot of traffic, attention, I would say awareness, brand building through that. My guess is it was more beneficial for me than for the company Moz. And that's an odd realization that you sort of come to. But one of the challenges with human being who is recognizable and on video is you start to associate the expertise with the human being. And I think that some of Moz's competitors, especially in the later years after I stepped down as CEO and was there, like, they realized that they didn't need to build personality brands. They could essentially win the space based on the strength of their software. And they did, right? I mean, Ahrefs, I think is, north of $75 million a year revenue. I think SEMrush is north of $250 million a year in revenue. Moz topped out and sort of plateaued at $50 million when I left. So I don't know what they are today, but.
Can I ask you a few specific questions about how you go around the content piece of your videos? So how deeply do you think about things like sort of what you're going to talk about? I mean, you have it all written down on the whiteboard, but when you're planning that out, what thoughts are going through your head in terms of what's going to make this an interesting piece of content, just from a sort of content point of view, really?
Yeah, I try to use I came up with this a few years ago, but I have this like hook, line, sinker model.
Okay. Yeah. That's what I was wondering.
Right. And essentially you can read about it on the SparkToro blog, but the core concept behind it is that there's a hook, which is the title of the piece and the positioning of that title. And hopefully it is a combination of something people are already thinking about in your space. Right. So in the world of yoga, let's say, as an example, if this is just a theory, but my guess is that online yoga is dying as people return to in-person studios.
Yeah, that's true.
And so potentially, right, because of the COVID and all that situation, I would think about whether yoga instructors who have historically, especially over the last 3 years, made good money with online, and now they are realizing, gosh, I'm going to have to transition like fully to in-person, and I can't seem to retain my customers from online. Maybe that would be my hook, right? The hook is, okay, online yoga is dying. Here's what you need to do to survive as a teacher.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Right. So it's a hook. It grabs you. It's something you were already thinking about. It's something that was in the zeitgeist, in the communities, in people's heads. It's something they're worried about, scared about, thinking about actively already. Right. I love finding questions that are in the back of people's minds that keep them up at night. and doing content about those things. I think they make for great hooks.
And do you just think of those, or do you research those? Those are just naturally because you know the subject, or do you actually go out
in spaces
and find them?
where I know the subject, I tend not to have to research.
Yeah.
But for example, right, a lot of people have been talking about like AI in marketing. And so I spent a ton of time researching that because it's not actually an area I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And so I don't absorb it. I'm not subscribed to all the blogs and, you know, whatever, having the conversations and going to the conferences and all that kind of stuff. I had to like dig deep. I did that big research piece with Datos, what was that, 2 weeks ago, and published all that stuff, right? And so was digging into like, you know, I got to manually look at thousands of people's ChatGPT prompts and really understand like, oh, okay, this is what they're using it for. This is why they're using it. This is how they're using it, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, that research process is, I think, dependent on how well you know the field. Rosie could probably crank out a bunch of hooks because she already knows, right? If you were to ask her, hey, Rosie, what are 10 things that like keep yoga teachers up at night right now? She'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
She would.
Done. Right. I don't know what keeps yoga teachers up.
Yeah.
You know, I have one guess. My one guess is based on like a broad global phenomenon.
It was a great guess. And so once you've got the hook, what happens then in terms of your creative process for your whiteboard?
Yeah, so then it's the line, right? And the line is essentially, I want that, the line is the through line that takes people from here is my problem to here is the content that sort of solves my problem, or here is this issue and here is the discussion of that issue that makes me feel seen. Okay. Or that that triggers my attention to stay with it. Easier in a 5-minute whiteboard than it was, you know, back in Moz when I was doing the whiteboard Fridays and they were like 15 or 20 minutes or something like that. But attention spans were also longer back then. And then there's the sinker, and the sinker is something either in the middle to the end of the piece that is designed to stick with the reader, the consumer, the video watcher, the listener. And that sinker has to be something that triggers an emotion.
Okay.
Right. So for example, in the AI research piece, for me, the sinker was AI usage, at least of ChatGPT, is down significantly from its peak in April, and it continues to trend down. And so my guess is, right, that sinker is like a message that completely shatters the myth of, oh my God, AI is going to be everything. Everyone's going to use it to do everything. It's only continuing to grow. The fact that it went, you know, huge bump in December, January, February, March, April, and then it's been shrinking ever since, and shrinking to a degree that the API or other tools just couldn't reasonably explain, right? We're talking about a loss of tens of millions of users statistically. That strongly suggests AI is great for some things, and a lot of people who tested it out were like, I can't really figure out how I'm going to use this on a regular basis, so I'm not going to. That's, you know, it's a media worthy, tweet worthy, LinkedIn post worthy, send to my boss worthy, send to my friend who's panicked that AI is going to take their job worthy sinker. And that is the emotional, you know, core of the piece.
And how do ideas come to you?
I want to quote one of my favorite terrible movies for you, Jamie. This is from 1994's Empire Records. This is a movie that almost no one who's not late Gen X is familiar with. But in that movie, I believe the character named Lucas at the beginning of the film says, "Who knows where ideas come from? They just appear." I have not studied how brains work, but for me at least, ideas, I think that I have good ideas when I consume other people's good ideas.
Okay.
But the trajectory of that, right? The journey from consume good ideas from other people to create good ideas of your own, long and winding road.
Cool.
This is the advice they always give writers, right? If you want to write well, consume great writing.
Yeah. And write.
And then write. That's the hard part.
Yeah. Right. One more question. And feel free not to answer this one. So on this 5-hour journey back from the south coast of England to where I live with my wife and you as company on the radio for 5 hours, going through Bluetooth on YouTube, I was getting all excited about AI and search engine optimization. She wasn't very interested in a lot of it. And actually, in one of them, you were telling your Moz story and your Moz exit story. And she said, what she really wanted me to ask you, so this is from Rosie to you, is what did you do? Because I think there was one part of the story where you stood up and you walked out and you said, I can't do this anymore, I think, or something like that. I said, what did you do directly after that happened?
Well, I vomited in a toilet.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, in the bathroom at the back of the second floor of the Moz offices.
That's incredible. And that was just a physical reaction to all the pressure coming out, was it?
I think it was. So if this is the incident that I'm thinking about, right?
Yeah.
It was basically like this giant, I don't know, product planning meeting that I thought was a complete waste of time and a terrible idea from the outset. And then during that meeting, I had this sort of sense of dread that I had spent the entirety of my professional career, 17 years, building something awful. That was a waste, right? That was causing a whole bunch of talented, smart, wonderful professionals, many of them young in their career, some of them more experienced, but just causing them pain and heartache and strife. And I had unintentionally led us on this awful misadventure. And Moz was such a, core part of my identity at the time. I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, it's really hard to separate your business from your personal identity, how you see yourself, who you think you are as a human being, your value. Why do you exist on this planet? Why are you here? Why bother continuing to wake up every day and brush your teeth and, blow drying my hair takes forever. Like you look like you have a much more manageable hairstyle.
It's 2 minutes,
Yeah, that's the lifesaver. And why am I doing all of this if what I've created is this monster that I don't like?
Yeah.
And it's a very existential sort of crisis. What of course you don't realize in the moment, but with the perspective of time and history, is that life journeys, professional journeys are long, and you can have good days and bad days. And maybe things that you make cause other people pain and strife. And maybe they also bring joy and wonder and amazing things to people. That was one of the low points of my career, Jamie, but I couldn't write about this because it hadn't happened yet. It wasn't in Lost and Founder, but one of the best days of my career was the day after I left Moz. And that is not because I woke up and was like, oh my God, the future is so bright, everything's gonna be wonderful. I woke up feeling like crap. I woke up feeling as awful as I did as when I went to bed. And, I had lost control and then eventually lost my job. And I presumed at the time that Moz would never be worth anything. And, that all of our sort of financial future was at risk, that kind of stuff. And I got to my computer where I'd written a blog post. I'd written a blog post the night before and published it, called My Last Day at Moz, My First Day at SparkToro. And I put it up at like midnight or something, emailed a couple lists that I was on and was like, hey, I'm leaving this company. And I woke up and for the next 2 weeks, I had so many thousands of messages in my inbox that I could not get through them in a full day of work. Like
Okay.
it was just an overwhelming number of lots of messages, right, from folks like yourself, and just thousands of people in the marketing industry. And the stories were overwhelming in the best way, like emotionally overwhelming. Rand, when you started Moz, like, I've been following your career and you helped me get this job, and I met you at this conference and you introduced me to my future boss, and I was at Moz years ago and then I got this other job, and like my life has changed as a result. Or I learned marketing from you and it helped me get out of this terrible situation that my family was in, and I turned my life around. And the number of stories was so overwhelming that I had no choice. I was forced by my email inbox to accept the fact that the last 17 years, even if they hadn't built the thing that I wanted or like made me rich or something, they had changed the lives of a ton of people for the better. And maybe that was more important. Definitely that was more valuable. I think I feel better about that than, whatever the stock I sold or something.
A huge thank you to Rand for his time and his brutal honesty. I hope you got lots of value out of that one. If you did enjoy it, if you can hit the like button down below now, it would be amazing, because it makes a huge difference in terms of how many people see this video. And also, every time you do hit that like button, our cats get a little treat. If you want to see more videos just like this, hit that subscribe button and you'll be notified every time I release a new one. Keep well, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.